be me, 26 years old, working as a sous chef at a high-end restaurant. Been here for 5 years working my way up from prep cook. Restaurant is intense, but the team is tight and we get shit done. Kitchen staff is about 15 people, mostly men, which is standard for this industry. We have this server named Adrienne, who is 24 and very outspoken about everything. She has been here for about a year and constantly talks about social issues, always bringing up feminism and gender inequality in the restaurant industry specifically. Makes comments about how the kitchen is a boys' club that excludes women. Our kitchen is probably 90% male, which is typical for fine dining. Honestly, most women who work here are front of house doing serving or hosting. We have had female cooks before, but they usually do not last long in this environment. The work is physically demanding, and the hours are brutal for anyone, really. Adrian starts bringing this up to our head chef Renzo during staff meetings. Says the kitchen is hostile to women because it is so male-dominated always. Says we need to actively recruit female cooks to balance things out here. Says having all men creates an unsafe environment for women in the building. Renzo is this old-school Italian chef who has been cooking for 30 years. He does not really care about politics. He just wants good cooks who can handle pressure. Tells Adrienne we hire whoever applies and can do the job properly. She says that is the problem. We are not trying hard enough to attract women. She goes to the owner, Trevor, who is younger and cares about the restaurant image. Tells him the kitchen culture is toxic and discriminatory toward women employees. Says we need to make a commitment to hiring more female cooks going forward. Trevor wants good press and does not want discrimination complaints, so he agrees. Announces at the next staff meeting we will be prioritizing female candidates for kitchen positions. Says we need more diversity and different perspectives in our cooking team. Renzo rolls his eyes but does not argue because Trevor is the owner. Adrienne looks so smug, like she just won some huge victory for women everywhere. Over the next 2 months, we hire 4 new female cooks for different stations. One named Jade for garde manger doing cold apps and salads. One named Chiara for sauté, which is one of the hardest stations we have. One named Destiny for grill, and one named Imani for prep work. Suddenly, our kitchen goes from 1 woman to 5 women out of 15 total. Adrienne is thrilled and keeps congratulating Trevor on making the kitchen more inclusive. She posts about it on social media, tagging the restaurant about progress being made. Talks about how much better the energy is with more women in the space. Says she finally feels safe and represented at work for once in her life. Notice immediately that Jade and Chiara are struggling hard with the pace we work at. Jade cannot keep up with tickets during dinner rush and falls behind constantly. Chiara burns food regularly and seems overwhelmed by having 6 pans going at once. Destiny on grill is okay, but needs constant supervision from Renzo to stay on track. Try to help them as much as possible without making them feel incompetent or bad. But this kitchen moves fast, and there is no time for hand-holding during service. Jade starts crying during a Saturday rush because she got too many orders at once. Chiara snaps at me when I point out she overcooked a steak that needs to be redone. Adrienne sees Jade crying and immediately blames the male cooks for being too harsh. Says we are bullying the women and creating a hostile work environment for them. Calls a meeting with Trevor to discuss how men in the kitchen are treating women. Several of us try to explain that crying during a rush is not acceptable for anyone. My coworker Luis says the new hires just are not cut out for this level of cooking. Adrienne loses it and calls him a sexist pig for saying women cannot handle it. Says he is perpetuating harmful stereotypes about women in professional kitchens. Luis shuts up and does not say anything else because he needs this job. Trevor tries to mediate and says we all need to be more supportive and patient. Says the new hires need time to adjust to the pace and intensity here. Adrienne volunteers to be the liaison between the women and management for support. She starts having weekly meetings with the female cooks during prep time. Renzo is pissed because those meetings take them away from their work during the day. Tells Trevor this is affecting our prep and slowing down the entire kitchen operation. Trevor says we need to make accommodations to retain our female talent here. Renzo mutters something in Italian and goes back to cooking without arguing more. 2 months in, and Jade puts in her 2 weeks' notice out of nowhere suddenly. tells Trevor the job is too stressful and not what she expected at all. Adrian immediately claims she was harassed by the male cooks into leaving clearly, demands an investigation into who made her feel unwelcome enough to quit. Trevor does an investigation talking to everyone and finds nothing wrong happened. Jade tells him honestly the job was just too hard and fast-paced for her, says everyone tried to help, but she could not handle the pressure of fine dining. Adrian refuses to believe this and says she was obviously intimidated into lying. 3 weeks later, Kiara also quits, saying the hours are too long and pay too low. She finds a job at a casual breakfast place with easier hours and less stress. Adrian is furious and says this proves the restaurant is toxic to women cooks. Says we are losing women because the men are making the environment unbearable somehow. She demands Trevor do something about the exodus of female talent immediately. Trevor asks what she wants him to do if they are leaving voluntarily for personal reasons. She says he needs to have mandatory training on gender sensitivity and inclusion. Says we need to examine why women do not feel comfortable staying here long term. Trevor agrees and hires a consultant to come in and do workshops with the staff. We spend an entire afternoon talking about microaggressions and unconscious bias toward women. The consultant tells us we need to be more aware of how we communicate with female coworkers, gives us tips on creating a more welcoming environment for women in male-dominated spaces. The training costs probably $5,000 and takes us away from prep work for half a day. Most of us think it is pointless because we did not do anything wrong to anyone. Adrian acts like this is a huge victory and thanks Trevor for taking action finally. Says she feels hopeful about the future of the kitchen culture now going forward. Month 4, and Destiny also quit, saying she got a job closer to home with better schedule. She was decent at grill, but never seemed that into the work honestly from start. Tells Trevor she wants something less intense where she can have a life outside work. Adrian says she left because she felt tokenized and isolated in the male-dominated kitchen. Imani, the prep cook, also quits around the same time to go to culinary school full-time. She was actually good, and we thought she might work out long-term here, but she says she wants formal training before working in a kitchen. This serious, Adrienne adds her to the narrative about women fleeing the toxic culture here. She makes a whole presentation for Trevor with statistics about the female turnover rate. Shows that 4 out of 4 women hired in the diversity push have left already. Says this is proof the kitchen is fundamentally hostile to women and needs major changes. Demands we do even more to make the environment safe and welcoming for female cooks. Trevor is frustrated because none of the exit interviews support her claims at all clearly. The women left for normal reasons like better opportunities and personal circumstances mostly. But Adrian keeps insisting there is a deeper systemic problem we are all ignoring. Says exit interviews are unreliable because women are afraid to tell the truth to management. She starts documenting everything and filing complaints about the male cooks constantly now. Says we use inappropriate language and make sexist jokes in the kitchen regularly. Files a complaint against Luis for calling someone a pussy when they messed up an order. Luis gets written up even though he says that to everyone, regardless of gender always. Another cook named Jerome gets reported for having a Playboy bunny sticker on his locker. Adrienne says it creates a hostile environment and makes women uncomfortable here. Jerome has to remove it even though it has been there for 2 years before she started. The kitchen vibe becomes tense and everyone is walking on eggshells around her constantly. Renzo has had enough and tells Trevor this is affecting the food quality and service. Says morale is down and everyone is afraid to communicate normally during service now. Says we cannot run a professional kitchen when everyone is worried about offending someone. Trevor says we need to be more conscious, but also maintain our standards and quality. Adrienne overhears this and accuses Renzo of not caring about women's safety at work, files a complaint saying he creates a culture of fear and intimidation in the kitchen. Renzo gets called into a meeting with Trevor and HR about his management style. He threatens to quit if this continues because he has been cooking longer than she has been alive. Trevor begs him to stay and promises to handle the situation more carefully going forward. But Adrienne has made the kitchen so uncomfortable that productivity is way down now. Tickets are taking longer because people are afraid to yell orders or push each other. The restaurant starts getting bad reviews about slow service and food quality declining. Month 5, and Trevor decides to hire 3 more women to replace the ones who quit. Adrienne pushed hard for this, saying, "We need to prove we are serious about diversity." The new hires are Shayla for pantry, Nina for sauté, and Fatima for grill stations. Adrienne welcomes them and immediately pulls them into her women's support group meetings. Within 2 weeks, it is clear these hires are not working out either at all. Shayla is slow and cannot handle multiple orders coming in at the same time. Nina has an attitude problem and argues when Renzo corrects her technique on anything. Fatima just does not show up for shifts sometimes without calling ahead to let anyone know. Renzo tries to discipline them the same way he would discipline any cook here. Adrienne intervenes every time, saying he is being too harsh on the women specifically, says he needs to adjust his communication style to be more sensitive to women's needs. Renzo loses it and says this is a professional kitchen, not a daycare for feelings. That comment gets him reported to HR again for creating a hostile environment toward women. Trevor has to have another talk with him about being more careful with his words. Renzo says he cannot do his job if he cannot hold people to the same standards. Says either Adrienne goes or he goes, because this is destroying the kitchen he built. Trevor is in a tough spot because Renzo is essential, but Adrienne has threatened legal action, decides to try to keep both of them and just manage the situation more carefully. Adrienne takes this as permission to keep pushing her agenda even harder than before. She creates a Women in Kitchen initiative with goals and metrics to track progress, posts about it on social media, and tags the restaurant as a leader in inclusion. Customers start coming in specifically because of our commitment to female empowerment, apparently. Trevor is happy about the PR, even though the kitchen is falling apart behind the scenes. Month 6, and Nina gets fired for showing up to work high multiple times in a row. She fails a drug test after Renzo reports her for being impaired during service clearly. Adrienne claims this is retaliation for Nina speaking up about the toxic male culture, threatens to help Nina sue for wrongful termination based on gender discrimination. Fatima quits after getting a written warning for her attendance issues and no call, no shows. She says the job is not worth the drama and she can find easier work elsewhere. Shayla also quits, saying Adrienne made everything too political and uncomfortable for her. Says she just wanted to cook, not be part of some gender war in the workplace. Adrienne has a complete breakdown when she realizes the women are leaving because of her. She cannot blame the male cooks anymore because the feedback is clear from the women. They are saying she made everything about gender when they just wanted to work. One of them tells Trevor directly that Adrienne is the problem, not the men. She takes 2 weeks off for mental health after this all comes out publicly, comes back and tries to say the women have internalized misogyny, making them defend men, says they have been brainwashed by patriarchy to accept toxic male behavior as normal, says we need to hire even more women to prove the restaurant is serious about change. Trevor finally tells her no more diversity mandates and we hire based on skill only. Says the diversity push failed because we prioritize gender over ability to do the job. Adrienne accuses him of being sexist and threatened to sue for discrimination and retaliation. She goes on leave again and files complaints with the labor board about hostile environment. While she is gone, the kitchen goes back to normal and everyone can breathe again. We hire 2 new cooks who happen to be men and they fit right in immediately. Food quality improves and service speeds up because everyone can communicate normally again. We start getting better reviews and customers stop complaining about slow service times. Adrienne comes back after a month and sees the kitchen functioning perfectly without her input, realizes nobody missed her or her constant complaints about gender dynamics and discrimination. She barely comes to work and spends most shifts on her phone or talking to customers. Her serving performance declines because she is distracted by her activism work all the time. Trevor puts her on a performance plan for not meeting her serving standards anymore. She claims this is retaliation for her advocacy on behalf of women in the restaurant, threatens legal action, but he has documentation showing she is underperforming at her actual job. She quits before she can be fired and posts a long rant on social media about the restaurant. In her post, she claims the restaurant is toxic to women and hostile environment for females. Says they hired women just to push them out through harassment and discrimination, clearly. Says any woman considering working here should avoid it at all costs for their own safety. Several of the women who quit respond saying that is not true at all, actually. They explain in comments they left for normal reasons, not because of the male cooks. Say Adriani made everything about gender when they just wanted to work and cook. Say the men were actually helpful and supportive the whole time they were there. One says Adrienne is the worst thing to happen to women in that kitchen, honestly. Restaurant quietly drops the diversity hiring mandate after everything that happened with this. We go back to hiring based on who can actually do the job and handle the pressure. Renzo tells us in a meeting, we learned that good intentions can backfire badly sometimes. Says competence matters more than demographics when you are running a professional kitchen. We hire a female cook 8 months later named Bianca, who is actually talented and tough. She came from another fine dining spot and knows exactly what this job requires, integrates into the team seamlessly, and nobody makes a big deal about her being a woman. She tells us she appreciates being treated like a cook, not a diversity hire or symbol. Ask her what she means, and she explains her last place was similar to what we went through. Says there was a woman like Adrienne who made everything about gender constantly every day. Says it made her feel like she was not valued for her skills, just for being female. Says she left because she wanted to be respected for her work, not her gender identity. One of the guys, Luis, says Adrienne actually made things worse for women trying to work here. Says by demanding special treatment, she made it seem like women cannot handle the real job. Says by creating constant drama, she drove away women who just wanted to cook and prove themselves. Says real equality is being held to the same standards, not lower standards because of gender. Realize he is right, and that Adrienne hurt the exact people she claimed to be helping. By making gender the focus, she made it impossible for women to just be cooks here. By demanding accommodations, she made women seem weak and incapable to everyone. By creating constant conflict, she poisoned the well for any woman who came after. Bianca is still here a year later and is one of our best line cooks now. She can hang with anyone and holds her own during the craziest rushes we have. Nobody thinks of her as the female cook. She is just a damn good cook, period. She succeeds because she is capable, not because anyone gave her special treatment. Year after Adrienne left, and the restaurant is doing better than ever with great reviews. We have 2 women on the line who are here because they can actually do the job. Nobody talks about gender or diversity because it is not an issue when you just hire well. People are judged on their ability to execute, not their demographics or identity politics. See Adrienne on Instagram, and she is doing the same thing at a new restaurant now, posting about fighting for women in the industry and calling out toxic male culture. Wonder how long until she creates the same problems there and gets herself fired again. Feel bad for whatever kitchen has to deal with, her making everything a gender issue. Renzo says he knew from the start it would not work out this way. Says you cannot force diversity by lowering standards. It just sets people up to fail. Says the women who can actually do the job do not need special treatment or protection. They just need a fair shot, and they will prove themselves through their work alone. Think about how Adrienne's crusade actually set women back in our kitchen significantly. Before her, we had 1 woman, and nobody thought twice about gender at all, honestly. After her disaster, everyone is nervous about hiring women because of potential drama. She created the exact problem she claimed to be fighting against through her actions. The women who succeed here are the ones who want to be treated equally to men, not given special accommodations or protected from normal kitchen expectations and pressure. They want to be judged on their work, not their gender or identity constantly. Adrienne's approach undermined that by making gender the most important thing, always. Realize that forced diversity without considering competence helps nobody at all, really. It sets people up to fail and then blames everyone else when they do fail inevitably. It creates resentment and division instead of bringing people together under common goals. It makes the workplace worse for everyone, including the people it claims to help. Sometimes the loudest activists are the ones causing the most damage to their own cause. Sometimes fighting for equality means treating people equally, not giving them advantages. Sometimes the best way to help women is to judge them by the same standards as men. And sometimes the person screaming about discrimination is actually creating it themselves.